In the early 1980s, Yamaha had a mission, and subtlety wasn't part of the plan. They weren't chasing European finesse. They weren't interested in featherlight handling or track day lap times. Their goal was loud, bold, and unmistakable. Dominate American streets. At the time, the US wasn't ruled by sport bikes. It was ruled by V8 muscle, Camaros, Mustangs, Firebirds. The soundtrack of torque and thunder echoed from every drag strip and diner parking lot. Japanese bikes were fast, but not that kind of fast. They hadn't yet cracked the American obsession with raw, unfiltered power. Yamaha saw that as a challenge, and they didn't tiptoe in, they came in swinging. They didn't want to compete with muscle cars. They wanted to embarrass them. So they tore up the rulebook, went back to the drawing board, and imagined something radical. Not a sport bike, not a cruiser, something new, something built to brawl in a straight line. What emerged wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a declaration. Loud, brutal, unapologetic. The VMAX didn't blend into traffic. It dominated it. From its menacing stance to its V-boost-fueled aggression, the VMAX wasn't about refinement. It was about presence. A muscle bike that could launch harder than a Camaro and still leave its rider breathless. This wasn't a nod to American culture. It was a direct punch to the chest of it. Because when your mission is to win over America, you don't ask politely, you roll up, twist the throttle, and make noise. If that intro hit like a gut punch, brace yourself because this ride's just getting started. We bring the raw, the real, and the kind of bike stories no one else is telling. So smash that subscribe button. It helps us grow the channel that doesn't pull punches. The louder we get, the more stories we get to tell. Let's make some noise. Research and development. Behind the engine's development was Akira Araki, Yamaha's motorcycle GM and spiritual father of the VMAX. Araki didn't start with a chassis or a styling brief. He began with the idea of a motor that could rival a muscle car, something dystopian, aggressive, loud, intimidating. He tasked the team with one goal: to build an engine so powerful that it would define the bike's entire identity. The heart of the beast of the original Yamaha VMAX lies in one of the boldest engine transformations in motorcycle history. But it didn't start as a muscle bike motor. It began life as the smooth, civilized power plant in the Venture Royale, Yamaha's luxury touring flagship. That motor was a 1,198 cubic centimeter, 72-degree V4 designed for long-distance comfort. It was refined, quiet, reliable, everything the VMAX was not meant to be. But Yamaha engineers looked at it and saw potential. What if we morphed this touring engine into a fire-breathing street weapon? Yamaha's R&D team tore it down and rebuilt it from the crank-up. High-lift camshafts were installed to dramatically increase airflow. Larger intake valves with slimmed-down stems allowed more fuel-air mixture to rush in. Lightweight pistons slashed reciprocating mass, letting the engine spin harder and faster. And the crankshaft and rods were reinforced to withstand the newfound fury. When they were done, they had transformed a motor pulled from the world of comfort and turned it into a weapon for the street. The VMAX engine produced 145 horsepower, nearly 60% more than the Venture ever dreamed of. In the mid-1980s, that wasn't just strong, it was shocking. But raw horsepower wasn't enough. Yamaha needed drama. They needed something riders could feel in their chest. Enter the V-Boost system, a breakthrough piece of intake wizardry. At 6,000 RPM, a servo motor activated butterfly valves between the intake manifolds, effectively letting each cylinder breathe from 2 carburetors instead of 1. The system delivered a violent surge of power that hit like a switch. Instant, unmistakable, unforgettable. It was visceral, addictive, and totally unique to the VMAX. It didn't whisper performance, it screamed it. Though Yamaha never released exact figures, developing this engine likely cost hundreds of millions of yen, rivaling their most advanced marine and turbine projects at the time. The fact that it came from a repurposed tourer made the final result even more legendary. Design like no other. When the Yamaha VMAX hit showroom floors in 1985, riders didn't know what to call it because nothing else looked like it. Was it a cruiser, a street fighter, a sport bike? Not even close. It was a bike that looked like Mad Max on 2 wheels, the kind of machine that looked dangerous even when it was parked. In the end, the VMAX didn't fit any known category, so Yamaha did something radical. They made a new one, the Power Cruiser. Behind its radical design was US-based planner Ed Burke. The VMAX was designed specifically for American tastes, where stoplight-to-stoplight power was king. Drag racing culture inspired every aspect of its evolution. Early prototypes were tested right here in the US, in California workshops and on drag strips where muscle cars ruled. The team obsessed over torque and launch force. Handling came second. Performance in a straight line, that was everything. The Yamaha VMAX wasn't a global crowd pleaser. This was Yamaha targeting one country with laser focus. For the first time, they built a motorcycle specifically for the American market. And not just any part of it. It was built for the quarter-mile strips. It didn't just look fast, it looked furious. With a wheelbase stretched like a dragster and a stance that sat low, wide, and tightly wound, it gave off the energy of something about to explode off the line. Its posture alone told you this machine wasn't built for cruising. It was built for launching. But the real showstopper? Those massive bulging air scoops mounted on each side of the tank. At first, they weren't even functional, just pure styling designed to intimidate. And they did. Nothing else on the road looked quite like them. Angular, oversized, and unapologetically aggressive, the scoops became the VMAX's signature, a warning sign to anything that dared pull up next to it at a red light. Yamaha didn't just design a bike, they designed a statement, one that said, "This machine isn't here to blend in, it's here to dominate." Dominating the drag strip. When Yamaha dropped the VMAX in 1985, it didn't just arrive, it detonated. This wasn't a motorcycle designed to fit in. It was built to rip the performance world open with brute force and no apologies. Straight off the showroom floor, the first-gen VMAX 1200 was running quarter miles in 10.6 to 11 seconds, reaching up to 125 miles per hour, superbike territory for the mid-80s. It shocked purists, it thrilled lunatics, and it redefined what a power cruiser could be. With 145 horsepower and a savage 83 foot-pounds of torque, the secret weapon was Yamaha's now legendary V-Boost system, a mechanical beast that kicked open the secondary intakes at 6,000 RPM, unleashing a second wind of controlled chaos. Below 6K, it was tame. Above it, pure Jekyll and Hyde. From a dead stop, the VMAX rocketed to 60 miles per hour in under 3 seconds. No ride modes, no traction control, just raw muscle. One setting, full send. Sure, the Suzuki GSX-R 1100 danced through corners with more grace, and the Kawasaki GPZ 1100 offered refinement. But point for point in a straight line, they simply couldn't match the VMAX's gut punch acceleration. Even when Harley-Davidson rolled out the V-Rod, engineered with Porsche and hyped as a drag bike, their numbers couldn't compete. A 11.5-second quarter mile couldn't touch Yamaha's heavy hitter. But the real legend? It grew underground. Street racers and drag warriors transformed the VMAX into something unholy. Extended swing arms, slicks, nitrous, wheelie bars, whatever it took to break the beam faster. And yet, even in stock form, the VMAX was enough to make traffic lights feel like starting lines. It never claimed to be elegant. It never needed to. The VMAX was a sledgehammer wrapped in chrome. For over 2 decades, it ruled one stretch of road and one stretch only, the quarter mile. Before we dive into how Yamaha took the VMAX from street legend to full-blown monster, let's just take a second. If you're vibing with this kind of no BS video, bikes with attitude, engines with bite, and deep dives that actually hit, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Every sub fuels more content like this. The more this crew grows, the louder our voice gets. Let's keep the throttle pinned. The second generation VMAX. In 2009, Yamaha didn't just bring back the VMAX, they resurrected it with fire in its veins and technology in its soul. This wasn't a facelift, it was a complete rebirth. At its heart, a 1,679 cubic centimeter, 65-degree V4 engine, pumping out an earth-shaking 197 horsepower and 123 foot-pounds of torque. It was no longer just a street bruiser, it was now a precision-engineered powerhouse. The second-gen VMAX could tear through the quarter mile in 10 seconds flat, hitting over 140 miles per hour, while weighing a hefty 683 pounds. Numbers like that weren't just impressive for a cruiser, they were absurd. Once again, Yamaha had built a machine that laughed at the limits. And this time, the VMAX wasn't alone. It faced off against new contenders. The Ducati Diavel, the Harley-Davidson V-Rod muscle, and even hyperbikes like the Suzuki Hayabusa and Kawasaki ZX-14R. The Hayabusa and ZX-14R were sleeker and lighter, but the VMAX didn't need finesse. It brought brute force and instant torque to the fight. What made this generation special wasn't just power, it was intelligence. Yamaha packed it with YCCI, Yamaha Chip-Controlled Intake, a system that adjusted intake length in real time to keep torque sky high at any RPM. Paired with YCCT, chip-controlled throttle, the bike delivered fly-by-wire precision that made every twist of the throttle feel surgically exact yet utterly savage. They even lightened the load using forged aluminum pistons and magnesium engine covers, materials usually found in elite superbikes. This wasn't just a cruiser with muscle, it was a cruiser with intent. The 2009 VMAX wasn't a nostalgia trip, It was Yamaha planting a flag, proving that muscle bikes could evolve, get smarter, and still burn rubber with the best of them. It honored its roots while forging a new legend, louder, faster, and smarter than ever. Why was it discontinued? Even legends can't outrun time. As much as the Yamaha VMAX reigned as the king of muscle bikes, the world it was born to dominate had evolved. And by the late 2000s and 10s, the second generation VMAX, still as brutal and iconic as ever, found itself fighting battles it could no longer win. The first and biggest enemy? Emissions regulations. With the implementation of Euro 4 and soon after Euro 5, the global motorcycle industry was forced to meet increasingly strict standards for noise and exhaust output. The VMAX, with its enormous 1,679 cubic centimeter V4, simply didn't fit the mold. It was loud, thirsty, and emissions heavy. To bring it up to code would have required more than tweaks. It needed a full engine redesign, a massive investment Yamaha wasn't willing to make for a low-volume machine. Then came the weight. At over 680 pounds, the VMAX was a heavyweight champion in a featherweight world. Riders were shifting toward motorcycles that offered versatility, agility, and comfort. Sport tourers, adventure bikes, and modular platforms that could meet multiple riding needs. The VMAX was a specialist in an age of generalists. Fuel efficiency, mediocre. Long-distance comfort, limited. Cornering agility, manageable but not competitive in a market obsessed with nimble, do-it-all machines. Sales told the story. While the VMAX still had a passionate cult following, it was no longer selling units like Yamaha's MT series, the Tracer lineup, or even the new Tenere models. Those bikes were easier to produce, easier to sell, and better aligned with the future of motorcycling. It was built to break the rules, but the rules caught up. So in 2020, Yamaha quietly ended production of the VMAX. No farewell edition, no flashy send-off, just a legend rolling off the assembly line one last time. Engine roaring, unapologetic as ever. But if the VMAX had to go, it went the only way it could, on its own terms. It didn't just disappear, it etched its legacy into the pavement. It roared down the quarter mile, flipped the bird to emissions laws, and burned its name into motorcycle history. Even in retirement, the VMAX isn't forgotten. It's feared, it's respected, and it's still the muscle bike by which all others are judged. The legacy lives on. The Yamaha VMAX may be out of production, but it never really left. Its legacy still echoes through alleyways, drag strips, and early morning rideouts. It lives in the rumble of cold starts, the whine of modified superchargers, and the unmistakable silhouette pulling up at a bike night. For those who know, the VMAX isn't just a motorcycle, it's a movement. Across the world, VMAX owner clubs are thriving, from the US and Canada to Europe and Japan. Riders gather for meetups, long-distance rallies, and group rides to celebrate a machine that never asked for permission. These bikes are worn like badges of rebellion, symbols of torque addiction, street presence, and unfiltered power. And then there's the aftermarket scene. Few bikes invite customization like the VMAX. Builders stretch swing arms, bolt on nitrous kits, install massive performance exhausts, and transform them into full-blown drag monsters. Whether it's the classic Gen 1 with its iconic V-boost surge, or the Gen 2 with fly-by-wire tech and modern muscle, the VMAX is a canvas for speed. Used VMAX models still command respect and high prices. The first-generation bikes are sought after for their retro charm and raw mechanical personality. Meanwhile, the second-gen VMAX is considered a modern icon, still faster and louder than most bikes on the road today. Low-mileage, unmodified examples have become collector's gold. The VMAX was never for everyone, but for those who got it, it wasn't just transportation, it was a declaration. The VMAX continues to grow in myth. It's still out there at local drag events, underground builds, and on the streets, launching like a missile whenever the light turns green. The VMAX didn't fade. It forged a legacy. One burnout, one wrench turn, and one twisted throttle at a time. Could it ever return? The Yamaha VMAX is gone, but is it gone for good? In a world shifting rapidly toward cleaner, quieter, and smarter machines, the thought of a 1,679 cubic centimeter gas-guzzling juggernaut seems like a relic. Emissions laws are tougher. Electric bikes are rising. The industry's tone has changed, but Yamaha hasn't gone silent. Behind closed doors, they've been experimenting with alternative powertrains, from fully electric drivetrains to hydrogen combustion engines and hybrid systems that blur the line between analog and digital. Patents have been filed, prototypes have been tested. And in Japan, the belief that motorcycles should still stir the soul hasn't disappeared. It's just evolving. Could the VMAX return? Not as we remember it, but maybe reimagined. A V4 engine wrapped in muscle and menace, shaking windows and rattling egos every time it fired to life. With its 1,679 cubic centimeter mechanical sledgehammer, the VMAX was built to ignore convention and bury the red line in brute force torque. It didn't care about lap times. It cared about domination, from the stoplight to the drag strip. But what about today? Would you ride a bike powered by an engine this savage? Or has the era of high-displacement, fuel-guzzling monsters passed us by? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear if this kind of power still belongs on the street. And if you love motorcycles that probably never should have made it past the prototype phase, bikes that snarl, shake, and scream rebellion, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more insane motorcycle deep dives, and ring the bell so you never miss a ride into the wild side of motorcycling.